Professor Khan, the architect of Quad, what in your appreciation was Shinzo Abe's biggest contribution? Let's now specifically talk about India-Japan relations, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, spoke of him as one of India's most dependable friends.
Yes, Gaurav, we have lost a friend of India. Even though he has a step down, but he has significant influence on Liberal Democratic Party, which is the ruling party, because he was the chief of the #1 faction within the LDP, and in Japan it is allowed to have factions. So there are 4 or 5 factions within the LDP, and Shinzo Abe was one of the he was the head of the largest faction. So, and prior to that, there was an emotional connect that he had with India. And as you mentioned, that I have written a book on India-Japan relation. During the research work, I found that he was influenced after listening to the stories from his grandfather, Kishida, who was welcomed by India in 1957, and he was given grand welcome, and he was given a chance to address the Indian masses from the rampart of Red Fort, which only an Indian Prime Minister gets. So Kisi was moved by this gesture from India, and then thereafter what happens, there was a chill between India-Japan relation because of the Cold War, but as soon as the Cold War got over, there was a new beginning. And when Shinzo Abe was the chief cabinet secretary of Japan, he had written a book where he has envisioned that he wants to see India-Japan relation blossoming up and taking over the US-Japan relationship. So,
And something that he was really working on, both with Dr. Manmohan Singh when there was a UPA government, and subsequently with Prime Minister Narendra Modi taking over in 2014, Ambassador Sood. This relationship, was it then on a different trajectory altogether, 2014 onwards?
Well, yes, I think because while his first tenure was a short tenure, his second tenure was obviously a 9-year-long tenure, but there is a lot of continuity. The ideas that he voiced when he came to India in 2007, in his longer tenure from 2012 to 2020, he was able to implement them. Don't forget that during that period, he also won 2 elections, one in 2012 and the second one in 2017. So in 2020, he stepped down basically for his personal health reasons.
Yes.
So he was able to put those into practice, as it were, both in the foreign policy domain as well as in the domestic economic policy domain.
What was his contribution? What was his biggest contribution between 2012 and 20 to India-Japan relations? Now, Ambassador Trigunyat had said that Quad was, one brainchild of his, but that was bringing democracies together. Yes, India-Japan in a big way, the United States, the Malabar series of exercises, roping in Australia subsequently. But bilaterally, what was his biggest contribution, Ambassador?
I think his biggest contribution was to give greater content to the economic relationship. He realized that a strong India was a very fundamental part of the kind of security architecture that he visualized, because as he talked of the idea of the coupling for peace, freedom and prosperity, and if we talk of peace, freedom and prosperity, he saw India as a vital partner, and he felt therefore that India needed to be strengthened in that sense. So he used, I think, both the economic factor, the development cooperation factor, a growing role for India in the region. All of this was something that he supported very, very strongly. And we see that growth in terms of its results during the last 5-7 years.
Okay.
defense side of it was the Quad, because obviously Japan, given its constitutional provisions, has certain self-imposed restrictions. So from that point of view, he preferred that he would work through the Quad, and he was able to bring in Japan, with Japan, he was able to bring in the United States and Australia into it, and thereby impart a certain momentum to it. But
Stay
at
with me
a
for a
bilateral
moment.
level, it was economics and people-to-people connect.